Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Today we look at currency exchange rates. So firstly, currency is the type of money each country uses. So you probably know in Australia we use Australian dollars. But if you went over to the US, you wouldn't be able to use our money. They have their own money, US dollars. If you go to UK, they use the pound. If you go to anywhere else in Europe, they use euro, for example. So that's what currency means. Now, not all currency is equal. So what I mean by that is one Australian dollar can't necessarily buy you the same as one US dollar. They're not worth exactly the same in the global market. Now, anybody who's done like online shopping from US would know this. In 2012, for example, the Australian dollar was quite high. It was worth about $1.09 US. So that means that one Australian dollar was worth more than one US dollar. So if you wanted to buy something from the US online that was like $50 US, it would have actually cost you less in Australian dollars. Now in 2017, when I'm making this video, it turns out one Australian dollar is worth less than one US dollar. So if today I wanted to buy something online from the US that cost $50 US, I'd have to pay more than 50 Australian dollars because it's worth less. Now, these currency rates change every single day. So they go up and down, they fluctuate. So we're just going to look at the maths behind this when we tell you what the rates are, and then you use that to calculate how much of another currency we would get. So if we look at this table here, I've compared the Australian dollar to two currencies on the day I made this video. So USD means US dollars, GBP means pounds in Great Britain, and one AUD means one Australian dollar. So this number here means that one Australian dollar buys 79.44 US cents, or $0.7944. Now I'm going to actually explain what buy and sell mean, the difference between them later in the video. But firstly, we're just going to do some basic calculations. Now you may be a bit confused because there are two numbers comparing Australian dollar to US dollar. But when you go online, if you just Google, AUD to USD, it gives you one number. On the news, they give you just one number. So how do they get that number? Well, the actual exchange rate is the average of these two numbers. So when we're doing all our calculations today, we'll be comparing to like one Australian dollar. So the exchange rate, I'll put ER for exchange rate. One Australian dollar is worth, and so how we figure that out, we add the two numbers together and divide by 2. That's how we find the average of two numbers. So if you put that on your calculator, you get 0.7518. So one Australian dollar is worth 0.7518 US dollars, or 75.18 US cents. So we can now use that to answer a couple of questions. So this is like converting rates that we did in a previous lesson. So I know how much one Australian dollar is worth, and I want to find out how much 50 Australian dollars would be worth. So I'm going to write my rate. So I've got 1 AUD per 75.18 US cents, and I want to figure out how much 50 AUD is worth Australian dollars. So this is just like previous lessons. How do I get from there to there? Well, obviously I times by 50 here, so I've also got a times by 50 there. So if I want to find out how much 50 AUD would be worth in US dollars, it'd just be the exchange rate, which is 0.7518, multiplied by 50, the number of Australian dollars. And that gives you 37.59, and I'll just write USD for US dollars. So that means 50 Australian dollars is worth $37.59 in US dollars, okay? Now, how would we go the other way though, if I wanted to know what 50 US dollars would be worth in Australian dollars? So I'm just going to quickly get rid of this example. Please copy it down if you need. So now I know the amount in US dollars, but I want to find the amount in Australian dollars. Now, because, as I said, in all the questions I give you, the exchange rate is going to be 1 Australian dollar equals whatever. It isn't going to be like 1 US dollar equals however many Australian cents. Because of that, what we can do is we can simplify this. So in the last one, when I knew how many Australian dollars I had and I wanted to find another currency, I just multiplied. It turns out in this case, rather than multiplying by the exchange rate, I divide. So to figure this out, it would just be the number of US dollars, and then this time, instead of timesing by 0.7518, I am dividing by it to get the amount in Australian dollars. And if I put that on my calculator, I get 66.51. So when I'm giving an answer in dollars, like the actual amount, then I'll round it to 2 decimal places, even though exchange rates are usually in 4 decimal places, just a bit more accurate when you're dealing with large sums of money. So that's a discovery we've made. If you want to take a foreign currency and find out how many Australian dollars it's worth, you divide. Whereas if you have Australian dollars and you want to change into a foreign currency, you multiply. I'm going to write that up for you. Pause the video and copy it down if you'd like. So this bit in red down the bottom says exactly what I just said. So if you're starting with AUD, Australian dollars, and you want to change to another country's currency, you multiply by the ER, which is exchange rate, and you divide by the exchange rate when you want to start with a foreign currency and convert to AUD. Okay, so I'm going to get the bottom of this taken off because I'm now going to explain the difference between buy and sell, so please pause the video and copy down if you need. Okay, so this unfortunately gets a little more complicated. Nothing in life can ever be simple. So in the previous one, we were just looking at how many of, say, 50 Australian dollars is how much that is worth in US dollars. But when you're actually changing money, when you're actually going to the bank and converting money, there are 2 different rates. The reason for this is basically so the bank makes money. So you can see that in both of these cases that the buy rate is always higher than the sell rate. So basically, if you were to say take 100 Australian dollars, convert it into US dollars, and then the same day you change your mind and go back to Australian dollars, you'd have less money than you started with. It's just basically so banks can make money. So the buy or sell depends on whether you're buying or selling Australian dollars. So when I say buying Australian dollars, you're giving the bank another currency and getting Australian dollars back. Just like when you buy a surfboard, you give them money and you get a surfboard. So buying means you're getting Australian dollars, and selling means you are getting rid of your Australian dollars. Now, because when you're buying Australian dollars, that means you're converting a foreign currency into Australian dollars. The rules that I just wrote up apply. You divide in this case. And because when you're selling Australian dollars, you are giving Australian dollars and getting a foreign currency, you multiply, just like the rule I put up before. So let's look at a couple of examples. So the question in red is about actually changing. So again, this is different from saying how many Great Britain pounds is 50 Australian dollars worth. If I was buying online, they would use the exchange rate, which is the average of the 2 numbers, these 2 numbers here. But when you're actually changing, you have to pick which rate you're going to use. So if I'm changing AUD to Great Britain pounds, I'm giving the bank Australian dollars. I'm selling Australian dollars. So I want the sell rate. And as it says here, when you're selling, you always multiply. So if I change $50 into pounds, I need to multiply 50 by 0.5604. And that is equal to 2802. So don't put a dollar sign because this is in pounds. So if I change 50 Australian dollars at the bank into Great Britain pounds, I'll get 28.02 pounds. Again, 2 decimal places because I'm using money. Okay, so let's look at one the other way. Okay, so this time I'm starting with pounds, 3,000 pounds. And I apologise, I shouldn't have put a dollar sign there. So I'm changing 3,000 pounds into Australian dollars, and how much will I receive? So this time, I'm getting Australian dollars. In other words, I'm buying Australian dollars, so I want to use the buy rate. And as it says here, when I'm using the buy rate, I always divide. So this will be simply 3,000 divided by the buy rate. And we put that on our calculator. And the answer I get is 4,690.43, again to 2 decimal places. And I can put a dollar sign because it's Australian dollars. So this sort of makes sense. If we look at the exchange rates here, you can see both these numbers are less than 1. So what that means is 1 Australian dollar is worth less than £1. So that means that if you're going from Australian dollars to pounds, you'd expect the number to be less because you need more Australian dollars to equal £1. And similarly, if you start with pounds and you go into Australian dollars, because the pound is higher, because it's worth more, you'd expect that you'd end up with more than 3,000 Australian dollars, which we did. All right, sorry about the long video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.